Welcome! With us, you're not just a listener, you're part of the community, the movement driving real progress. Let's explore how big ideas can turn into real-world positive impacts together. My name is Ronny Eriksson, and this is the Impact Series.
Mara Lehmann, you are at the intersection of responsible product design, psychology, and research. You're the co-founder and CEO of Tumblebee, a B2B software bringing nature's perspective into boardrooms. You help companies view their business operations from the perspective of vulnerable species, revealing to them how their activities impact their environment and provide actionable steps for their conservation. Your work seems to be anchored in using software and data to maximize positive impact. At the core, you're a pragmatic activist, data nerd, and nature lover. Really beautiful to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It was an unexpected turn of the morning.
It was indeed. I love when someone joins like last minute, comes in with a bit of surprise, because those conversations tend to become like the most beautiful ones because you don't know what to expect. You don't know what there is to come. Each of these episodes, they normally start with like broad, big what-if question, which is also the theme of this whole podcast. So here in the start, I will be throwing you into the deep end and let us like take the conversation from there. So first and foremost, what if we included non-humans right from the start in decision making?
I think so. This is a question that we are working with at Tumblebee, and I think if we were to do that in every way, no matter what kind of a business that we have, like be it for physical products or be it for investment decisions or for anything actually, that we would end up with a more conscious way of designing, of using, of selling, of buying, everything. And that in turn would lead to a more sustainable, like truly sustainable world. And you go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So in essence, what that means, like you look at like the world from a more holistic perspective. So normally we humans, we tend to rule over all the things. So it's kind of like we do the decisions that we think are the best, but we tend to forget that we're only a small part of the larger ecosystem, of the animals, of everything living around us. And no one ever asks them, right?
Yeah.
So I can see how that's a problem, because like it's even a problem for just as humans, is that you have a big organization or you have a city, and then the leaders of that organization or city, they are doing decisions without asking the citizens or the people. So then like this is kind of like even larger problem when you don't ask the other things around.
Yeah, it's a really good analogy. And from like, I'm a product designer, and you probably are familiar with the term of human-centered design or like customer-centered design. And this is, as you said, it's opening up that perspective even more. It's not just the customers that you should center in your design phase or in your product, but it's everything that is a part of what you're building, be it for like material selection or location selection or just anything. And we're probably not there yet. Most companies are probably not in that mindset yet, because there are still a lot of companies or governments or cities that even struggle with having that user-centered or customer-centered approach. So imagine if it's like an ecosystem-centered approach, it's even more challenging and data-heavy as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's not an easy thing probably to do, because how do you translate to CEOs or leaders or boards what the dog is saying or what the birds are saying or what the grass is saying. So I'm actually really intrigued to understand, how do you do it?
We're figuring that out. Yeah, so I can't answer that yet. But what we know is that we have a multi-data source approach, and we also want to include alternative data. Maybe also, and I have no idea how that is gonna look in the end, but also data sources that are typically like transmitted orally. I don't know yet how we could capture it. But yeah, so a multi-data source approach, going back in time as well. Kind of like on the temporal axis, you have to be in the as is now, and also how it used to be, because some ecosystems or some species, maybe we don't just want to use the data from the as is now, because there was a better time in the past for them, maybe, and also a more looking into the future. So it's like 3 time sources and then also multiple data sources.
So it's mostly data gathering and data analysis that is like the core of that, understanding like more complex data sets like nature or animals and all of these kind of things. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
Oh. Okay. First I was like, I have no idea, but that's not true. I've been nerding out on ingredients and materials for a long, long time. So I've always wanted to know, like, what is this table made of, and where does it come from, and how does it impact the ecosystem where it came from, and how does it also impact our health when we're using it, because there are a lot of materials that are either not the best for human health, but then also it's not only about human health, it's also about other species' health. So kind of like the whole circle. And I've been doing that just in private, and probably got on my friends' nerves a lot, because when they were like, oh, I just bought this, or I'm using like this shampoo, and then I look at the ingredients and tell them that they should not use it anymore because of A, B, and C. And so this feels kind of like a natural transition to bring that holistic perspective into like a simple way, so that you don't have to be an expert, because it's really hard. It's really hard even to know, is like this floor hardwood better than like a new material? And then also it depends on which values you might want to focus on, like what's important to you personally, what's important to your business. Like you have to be an expert in so many things, and you can't. So we want to make it easy for non-experts to have this holistic approach.
Yeah,
I hope that somewhat answered your question.
It did, and it's kind of like, I think the first step towards like impact is actually like genuine curiosity, and I think that's what kind of like you have. It's like, if you really want to do an impact, you really need to understand how the things around you are. It's a like pure curiosity to even ask the question, like, what if you would include the nature or the ecosystem or the other non-human things into decision making? So I don't think that's something that people even get to think about. So even that question already, even just explaining why that is important, probably like has an impact in it already, because that already changes the way people think and people act and people work. So that's why I like the context a lot. has someone been doing something similar? Like you seem to be like pretty new to that scene. What is someone doing something similar, and what is like your vision and mission with that?
I haven't. I'm sure there is someone, because the world is huge and you can't know everything. So don't take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But as far as I know, there are two things that I saw, and where my eyes were like lighting up and was like, I have to talk to them. I have to find a way to collaborate with them. And one is a Swiss organization called Swissnex, and they are rethinking how diplomacy works. And they had, and I wasn't there, I just saw it in my feed. But I've been at several of their events because they're Swiss and I'm Swiss, and they had like a really cool space in San Francisco where they included like innovation and art and creativity and tech. So kind of like interesting to you maybe as well. So they had this like kickoff event for a new era where we should also listen to non-human voices. And I was like, this is right up my alley. This sounds like something that we should talk about, but I haven't reached out to them yet. And then there was a very famous design and innovation agency called IDEO out of San Francisco. Well, they're global. Yeah. But it was just a blog post about future design and how we can use technology that is available to us now, like generative AI, for speculative design exercises. Or like, what if we designed like that? What if we but they had more the consumer perspective in a way, or like part in the so long explanation short, I haven't found anyone else. I've only like found these two organizations who are playing with that thought. Yeah. And we're also doing something more like kind of more normal. So this is like our long-term vision and mission, to like be able to give a literal voice to non-human entities. But for that, since it's so data heavy, we kind of start with a simpler approach, and it's like the situation now of companies, so that they start to understand their interface and impact with nature and biodiversity. And it's also for us to kind of get to know the data sets and get to build the skeleton behind.
What a vision to have all the non-human things being able to communicate with us humans. Like that's pretty impressive when you start to think about it. Like I could see like all of these scenarios in my head. Like first and foremost, it feels like a bit sci-fi when you think about it, that you could have like a plant and it could actually tell you or give its opinions. But then when you start to think it from actually a realistic perspective, like it's probably, the point is not that it's kind of like talking with you like, hey, Ronny, how are you doing? How is life? Is everything chill? I think it's more about that it could communicate that, hey, we're doing this kind of decision. And it can tell that, hey, this decision will affect me in this or this way. This will actually do these kind of things to me. That is immensely interesting because that doesn't even require the plant to actually talk. Just requires us to be able to have a conversation with it and understand what it actually is and what kind of role it plays in the ecosystem. So I see you. It's actually a really, really interesting take on the topic. I haven't thought it from that perspective.
And I also hope, so my hope is also that, so one, like, is it easier to, maybe that's a question back at you, is it easier to ignore like groups, or is it easier to ignore someone who can't speak for themselves? Is it easier to ignore it when it's just a number on a paper, or when you get a report from like, oh yeah, this will have, you know, it can be the same information even in that report, but then it's just on paper. So is it easier to ignore it like that compared to when you actually have almost a human-like conversation, and then you give them a personality, you give the grass a personality, you give it like maybe almost emotions, even though that's way out there. But so my hope is that we just like stop ignoring non-humans. And that they then also get a vote, maybe, because it shouldn't just stop at that you get the information or the knowledge. It should also be like that they have an actual vote in all the decisions if they are affected. And then also, maybe we should also build it from a child's perspective, because so often adults make choices that are really not the choices that kids would make. And then it's the kids who have to live in the future that will be their present. But like, so I don't know.
I just had this conversation with Laura earlier in this podcast series, and she also brought up the same thing, that no matter how many reports you write, no bad and negative news you put out there, no matter how many TED Talks you do, that doesn't actually change people's behavior that much. It doesn't actually roll the ball fast enough to actually create change. What then ended up creating change was when you turned it out into something that made people feel awe or wonder, or like actually like make their hearts sing. And I think like if you think about like say water, and like you think, should I use the soap when I go wash myself in the lake or not? If the news says that the lakes will be destroyed if you do that, it might maybe ring some bell. But if the water tells you that it really hurts and it makes his eyes like suffer, then maybe you start actually thinking from another perspective. So I think you have a good point there. So it's kind of like that kind of feelings. Like, can you really make the fish tell its pain when it's like stuck in like a trap in the ocean? These kind of things, I think, are what's kind of like also will change how people do their decisions, because you actually put a feeling and a face and a emotion, empathy on the non-human thing.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting topic.
Thank you. And maybe also like what I find sometimes really anxiety and depression inducing almost is when the whole climate, nature, biodiversity topic only focuses on the pain or only on the negative. I don't want to do that.
No.
So, and it's really hard because so often it's just like you should reduce this, you should steer away from that, you should, but typically, like we as humans are more drawn to the positive emotions. Yep. So how can we convey this without inducing fear, or without, doing like, this is bad, or kind of bringing a playful, optimistic aspect to the whole thing? That would also be not just like, don't do this, but also like, hey, I'm really thriving when you do this.
Yeah. Do you remember this game like Tamagotchi?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had like this like pet you took care of in this like small machine. So I just saw like a similar game on Instagram where they had made like a plant vase where you put the plant in, but it's actually like a living like game, like a Tamagotchi. So you put the plant in there, and then it measures how much water is there in the soil, is there enough nutrients, and then you have actually a face on a digital screen there, and it's happy. If it's happy, if you have given it water and given it enough sunlight, then the like Tamagotchi inside that is like happy and it's thriving, and it's and then if it's not getting everything it wants or not getting enough of your presence, it becomes sad, and then you want to take care of it. So that's like one way of doing exactly what you're saying. And if you like are able to gather data sets and build all of these things together, I think like then you can make more of these like super fun concrete games by using technology and like the know-how that there is in the background. So that was like really fun take, like to how to give like a heart and a soul to like animals.
Yeah. I'm so happy to talk to you. It's like it fills me with, I don't know. I feel like I wanna work with people and include people and have like the first pilot customers who use the more like down to earth thing, but who get the vision and who will also like want to be part of that. So it always makes me very happy when I meet people like you who are kind of sharing this potential vision of a new way of being with everything. Yeah,
and it's all about, I think, like, thank you for foremost, but I think like it's also about understanding. That's like it's what you do is about trying to understand things better. What I do is also trying to understand people and things better, because there is always something really smart in what people like envision to do. Just need to be able to listen. We're coming towards the end of the episode, but normally here in the end, I'm also really interested to hear what's next. So what is in your horizon? And say that everything that you dream to do actually becomes a reality. How do you think like the world will look in 5 or 10 or 20 or 50 years?
Oh, wow. So shorter timeline, what's next is, so we're a super early stage startup and just building the first version prototype. So we're going to be immersed in that. And then we'll probably raise money because you need money. People need salaries and technology is expensive, and especially when you work with a lot of data. So we're going to talk to a few investors who hopefully share a vision of the world like that.
Good that you're here at Catapult Future Fest.
I know.
Here, there's many of those.
Yeah, I have to find them.
Here's one.
They should. What? You're an investor? Yeah. What?
Also that, but I'm not probably like the best candidate at this event. There is a bunch, but I'll introduce you to those.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's like the very short term. And then envisioning the future in like, a couple of years, I would really, I don't know, that these, maybe that, when you're, this could be used as for designers whenever they design something that it's a part of the design process, that they're using our tool in whichever form it's gonna be, to like really include these voices at the very early stages, and so that it's kind of like we're using email, like we're using Slack, or like we're using, some people use Siri and Alexa, and why not the same with our Tumblebee AI agent for whichever species is important to you, that it's an integrated part of your life, whether you go to the grocery store and you wanna hear like, was this good for the soil? No, it wasn't. Okay. But the product next to it was, so I'm taking that. Yeah. Or also, that the boardrooms will not only talk the way they talk now, but with a very different, compassionate, holistic view that is also working with risks and blah, blah, blah. But yeah.
You're a non-human companion, I see that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, this whole event is all about like trying to help people like you to like reach the impact that they're trying to do. So you came to the right place. So I want to wish you like a super, super nice event. Take the most out of it and try to talk with people and try to share your vision with the same optimism you did here. And I think you will find what you're looking for.
Oh, thank you. It was a really nice coffee shop conversation.
It was a really nice coffee shop conversation. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.